Before we start today's video, I just wanted to let you guys know that I have officially dropped 31 Days of Halloween 2019 merch. The link is at the very top of my description where you can go and get your own, and I can't wait to see you guys wearing those t-shirts. Angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video, I am here to share with you guys a personal paranormal experience, or rather like this new era of a haunted house. Recently, you guys have been telling me that you've been really enjoying me sitting down and talking with you one-on-one about things that I've experienced or that people that I know have experienced, and that you guys have really missed my personal stories. And while I have some really crazy cases and just like hauntings and things to talk about with you in the coming days, I really just wanted to sit here and chit chat with you guys about Grams and Grams's new adventure that she is currently on. I am gonna have her, if she'd like to, come here on my channel and tell you guys all of her personal experiences about this. But in essence, my grandma has now moved into yet another haunted house. A house with a very tragic and dark and sad history, but also a very old farmhouse, and one that has been non-stop paranormal experiences literally since they moved into it. Before I get into today's video, today's letter of the day is the start of a new word, and the letter is Y. But without further ado, let's just dive right on into this. I have some personal experiences to tell with you, some things that my Grams has been sharing with me, even some things with my skeptical uncle, and then the next follow-up video to this will just be Grams telling you guys all about it. So for those of you who might be new to my channel, I have a series here where I talk about the haunted house that I grew up in. And the house was neither my mother's or my father's. It was actually my grandparents' home where I was raised and spent majority of my childhood. And my grandma loved that house. If there was anything that I could do right now, if I could snap my fingers, besides like trying to make a better difference in people's lives and in the world in general, I would love to be able to snap my fingers and buy that house back for my grandma. Despite being haunted, she loved every single corner of that home. And in fact, she doesn't even refer to the home as haunted. She refers to it as visited. And she enjoyed the presence of majority of the spirits that were there in that space. And it's just always been something that she's missed. Now, for those of you who ask why we got rid of the house, when my grandpa got sick and would later pass away, the home was just too much for just my grandma. And at the time, it was still so fresh, the wounds were so raw, and it just didn't feel the same. So they sold the house and my grandma moved out. And recently, she was living in the house that I previously lived in from before I moved here into my condos. So if you guys remember the original Tiffany blue wall, that was in that house. And I lived with my Grams, I lived with my mom, I lived with my uncle. We all lived together. And that house only started having strange experiences and paranormal activity when I started talking about all of the things from my childhood and talking about demonic entities and just the paranormal in general. But even then, majority of the experiences occurred in my room, like with the bees, if you guys remember, and the whistling and the singing and the voices and all of that. But the house itself wasn't necessarily haunted. And it also just wasn't older. And the one thing that my grandma really didn't like about the house was that it had a lot of stairs. She'd had to take a lot of stairs to go to bed. And as you guys know, she's getting older and it's just harder on her body to go up and down those stairs. So she really desired a bungalow or a home that she could put her room on the main floor and never have to really do stairs. So I moved out, I think 2 years ago in December, and she was still living there. And just a few months ago, they decided to get a new place. And they found this farmhouse literally in the middle of pretty much nowhere. It's like a almost like a street to get up to the house. It's surrounded by cattle corn, and there's like not a neighbor anywhere in sight. It's super old, and it was just perfect because a lot of the bedrooms were on the main floor. So my grandma felt as though she could just have that bungalow life that she'd really wanted. And They love the farmhouse. They love the farm life. They're talking about pickling things for the winter and just diving into all that is farm life. And she's thriving and she's happy and she loves the nature and the dogs are happy, and just every single aspect of the place was pretty much perfect. Except that the place came with a very tragic story. I contemplated talking about this a while back here on my channel, just because it is so haunted and they've had so many experiences, and there was such a tragedy that kind of created that haunting. But at the same time, it was so fresh. It is still so fresh. It is so recent. I almost felt it to be disrespectful to talk about the previous family's tragedy on the property. Just because if that were my daughter, if that were my toddler, if that were my family, it just felt as though that wound is so fresh and will probably always be open. I would feel probably most likely disrespected if somebody was talking about or exploiting what happened there. So I'm not going to actually get into exactly the history of it, but in essence, last year, a toddler died on the property, and the family decided to move out of the home because it was just a constant reminder of what happened. And she was this absolutely beautiful blonde-haired little girl, and I just can't even sympathize, not being a parent, how that would feel. And there's that tap again, that's weird anyways. I can't even sympathize how that would feel. And they just kept sensing her and feeling her and just remembering the tragedy all over the property that they decided to move out. And my grandma and my uncle were the first ones to move in after this. And they were told the history of the home, and they were told why the family was moving. And it didn't deter them from wanting to move in. In fact, they just felt terrible for the family. But one thing that I think is really, really important to note is that the place isn't so incredibly haunted just because of that. This is a old farmhouse. Old. Like, it is like, I would show you guys pictures, but then you'd probably track it down, and I want my grandma to have like privacy in her sanctuary and her space. But I believe that it's just one of those places that has had so much history to it. It's inevitably haunted, and there's inevitable energy around it. But right away, that was just kind of something that made me think a lot about the place. And when I first went to visit the place, my initial reaction was I couldn't believe how happy they were. They'd put like a pool outside, and my uncle set up like a badminton, I believe it is, court, and they had pretty much all these activities and things outside, and my grandma was always outside, and she was able to make her gardens, and she was super happy, and that made me happy. And they had like a really big garage, or they have, sorry, a really big garage. So I went through the house, and it gave me, I will say, a very eerie feeling. But one thing about me that I should always note, I am not really into like old farmhouses. Like, everybody has their taste in home, and I like a very modern, clean, just like a modern home. Like, that's my personal taste. Whereas somebody can look at something vintage and an older home and think that that is their thing. And so I didn't know if the home was giving me an eerie feeling because it was like the poster child for what an eerie haunted home would look like, or if it was truly that there was something in there. But I still had this unsettling, eerie feeling. However, on the outside, I'm telling my grandma, this is perfect for you, because it is. And she was so happy and excited. And I didn't want to be like, ooh, it's a little creepy, Grams. Especially being who I am, that just wouldn't be very fitting. But I went out to their big garage that they had, and I walked inside of it, and I initially looked straight to my left and was looking at the garage. And I turned to my uncle and I said, ooh, something just feels really off in here. Like, there is something in here. And my uncle proceeds to tell me how they have a resident raccoon in there, and that's probably what I'm sensing. Because if you guys have been here on my channel for a while, my uncle is like super skeptical. He always has a logical explanation for absolutely everything, which I'm not disregarding logic, but at the same time, he's had experiences that it's like, how do you not believe? But he started telling me that what I sensed in there was a resident raccoon, and I said, no, there is something in here. And I walked back out of the garage, and when I came around the corner, my cousin and my grandma were there, and I said, ooh, something is in that garage, like something is really off. And my cousin said, is it the little girl's toys? And I was like, what do you mean, her toys? And he goes, you didn't see in the corner? They left her toys here. And when I went back into the garage in the corner, this child's toys were left in the garage. And immediately I was hit with sadness. I was hit with sympathy for the family. I felt terrible, especially like picturing in my head that they couldn't bring her toys. Like it was a little girl's play kitchen and a little girl's like rolly, how do I describe it? Like almost like bike. Like, you know, those like kids can sit on it and it rolls around and it's like a bike, but there's no pedals. It's just on the ground. And it was a little pink little girl's toy. And there was even like pink socks over in the corner. And I just immediately felt like, ooh, like, okay. So I leave there with this feeling in my stomach that there's just something there in general. I can't say for sure whether it was the child or if it was just the history of the home, but I left there feeling like the place was really haunted. And in my mind and in my heart, I was like, I can never come here and do spirit boxes and film paranormal content because this is so fresh for a family that lost their child. Like, how insensitive could I possibly be to go there and be like, do you want to communicate when their daughter died on the property? Like, it's just so, I couldn't even fathom it. So left there. Eventually, as you know, days go on, you kind of forget about things. And I call my grams. We FaceTime pretty often. Recently, if you're watching this, Grandma, she called me a few times and I was in the middle of filming or really busy, and she wrote me today and was like, you don't call me anymore. It's not that. But on the regular, I talk to my grandma quite often, and she started to tell me how my cousin, he's dating a girl with a child, a little girl, and my grandma was home on her computer, kind of scrolling through everything on the computer, and she kept hearing a little girl's laughter running around, and she could hear the running because there is an upstairs. I think it's just my uncle's space if I'm not mistaken, but there is an upstairs. She just like is on the main floor, so to her it's a bungalow, but it's not actually a bungalow. And she kept hearing a little girl running around and giggling, but she didn't think that anyone was home. So after a while, she went to go and investigate. Come to find out, nobody was home. And that was one of the first things that she was like, oh, okay, like something is going on in here. And following this, strange things, like just pretty normal standard haunting things started happening. Like you would put something and it would be moved, or you would hear banging or noises or footsteps and nobody's home. Or just like in general, you'd see something in the corner of your eye. My grandma at one point saw like what appeared to be a child running and nobody was home. And honestly, my grandma told me, you guys, that it made her feel less alone when she was there alone. Like she didn't feel like anything's negative or dark, and she kind of missed the activity and stuff. Welcome to my family. But even my non-believing uncle, here's where things get crazy. The family that was living there before my grandma and my uncle comes back to the house, and they have another daughter who's like looks like the one that passed away there, kind of like, you know how siblings look alike. And they came in to look at something that they were like asking them about, saying, oh, is this normal? Like, is this how this should be? And I guess the little girl wandered up to where my uncle was sleeping, and he woke up to seeing this child in the room, and he just went like, ah! And he told my grandma after the fact, like days later, oh, I didn't think it was the child or anything. Like, I know that all the noises and things that we hear are just like our minds playing tricks on us type of thing. But my grandma and I, when we talked in private, said that we think that he's been having experiences too, because normally my uncle, I need to like put this into perspective for you guys. Prior to living there, if my uncle saw like even what looked like the ring kid in his room, he'd be like, oh, my mind's playing tricks on me. So the fact that he was even scared for a second led us to believe that he was having some sort of experiences, or is, and that for a second there he thought the child was in his room. But things in the house have just been going non-stop. And like I said, I don't feel like it's appropriate to go there and exploit the situation like with spirit boxes and whatnot, especially because it's just not my place. and it's so fresh and it's so recent. But I do think that I'm gonna have Grams here on my channel to talk about her personal experiences and share with you guys what's been going on, because a lot of things have been happening, and it's been a while since she's had like paranormal stories that are happening day to day, and she's such a wonderful, beautiful storyteller. So let me know in the comments below if you guys want to see that. But yeah, basically Grams moved back into a haunted house. It's not just the child. Very strange things have been happening in general. Like I said, the home is like super old, so it's kind of a given. But I thought that you guys would be excited to hear this update and hear that Grams is now having paranormal experiences again, which is kind of cool, because me going out and exploring and her living in a haunted space, we get to share ghost stories with one another and talk about all the crazy things that we're encountering from the other side. So I thought that you guys would enjoy this personal story time. Like I said, there is more paranormal investigations to happen this month. There's a lot more sit-down videos, cases, crimes, paranormal entities, the whole jazz. So make sure you let me know in the comments below if there is something that you'd like to see. But this video was for those of you who missed me just sitting down and chit-chatting with you and talking about personal things. With that being said, if you guys are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed but you do enjoy my videos, I would really love if you would go ahead and click that subscribe button and join the Reese's Pieces. We would love to have you, and please give this video a big thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until tomorrow, I love you guys.